All right, Rabbit. Where's Rocky? Where's he hiding?
Well, well, here we are on a Friday night, which is a little unusual for us, but I think that's two in a row. But we've got something to talk about this weekend. We've got winter storm watches, and for the first time, parts of the Northeast have extreme cold weather watches in effect. Okay, that's because bitter cold air is headed in behind this mess of a storm system that we're going to be dealing with here in the east. Next week, it's the Gulf Coast turn. How many times do you get to say that in a career? But yes, there could be some snow and ice along the Gulf Coast and the southeast coast and the deep parts of the deep south again. And it's winter time for sure, just about all across the United States. We'll cover it all tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which of course you can so easily support by simply doing your shopping on Amazon and using the referral link that's on the top of the pinned to the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this podcast. It's an easy way to support the show because you don't pay, it doesn't cost you a dime out of your pocket extra. Just use the referral link, buy whatever it is you're going to buy on Amazon, and Amazon will send us a little bit of coin for as thanks for sending you there, and everybody walks away happy. And we appreciate. I know a number of you have used the Amazon link, and we certainly do appreciate it if you use the referral Amazon link. Okay, I don't have this all figured out, Joe. It's a very complex forecast because there's a lot of players in this mess, and I'm not 100% sure which way this is all going to turn out. So I've got my early call, which I don't change until I put the late call, the final call up, because I don't like to bounce around. I'm not going to change forecast based on every model run. This is kind of a complex setup.
I was talking with you about this earlier today, and it was kind of difficult to try to have any confidence in a consensus because we have one model, the NAM, that keeps us more or less on the northern edge of this storm. We have a model, the Canadian model, which is a coast hugger and is even suggesting a change from snow to sleet to even rain for some. We have the GFS, which is likely going to continue to hold on to its idea of maybe as much as 4 to 8 inches in one sitting. And then we have the European, which, if you look at the ensemble, the European ensemble, it takes the system off to the south and east of what we know as the 4070 benchmark. Now, if it goes through the benchmark, that usually is the jackpot for snow lovers, but this looks like a system that's going to be moving relatively fast, relatively quickly. And if you believe the European, it'll be just south and east of the benchmark. So we would get some snow, but not the numbers that the GFS is suggesting. As I said, the GFS is saying like maybe 4 to 8. The European would be relatively maybe half of that.
2 to 3, 2 to 4.
Yeah.
There are reasons why the models are doing what they're doing, and it has to do with well, I'm going to get into it when we look at what's going on the weather maps tonight, because it's not that simple. This is an odd situation because we're basically 48 hours, less than 48 hours away from an event, and at this point we're usually just sort of fine tuning things, but because of the fact that you've got this weather front coming through tomorrow, there's a low that is moving through the south tonight, and that's going to be bringing rain across the south and into the southeast. That's going to move out into the Atlantic. That little low is the key to everything that's going to happen behind it. I'm going to stop there, and we'll get into all of this. Look, bottom line is, snow or no snow, it's going to get bitter. It's going to be bitter cold for a good chunk of next week.
Well, as we have said in the past, you're absolutely right. Whatever that storm ultimately does, if it's weaker than anticipated or if it gets noticeably stronger than what predictions are suggesting now, that'll play a big role into where the next system, and the next system is not like a couple of days behind. It's like literally on the heels of this system tomorrow. We've got this system coming in tomorrow, bringing us the possibility of some wet weather, some showers here. Then the front will move on through, and then we'll see on the tail end of that front where this Sunday system is ultimately going to go. And where it does go will tell us just how much of the white stuff most of you will be getting later Sunday and Sunday night.
All right, so let me run through a couple of things here. Brandon Doherty, Robert Lomnicki, and Raymond O'Hara, all early hitters of the tip jar tonight. Thank you for hitting super chat. It is most appreciated. And of course, welcome to everybody on the chat board. Those of you who are watching in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Normally, our schedule is Sunday through Thursday at 7:30, but because there's something going on, we added this Friday night show. Now, tomorrow, I will probably be doing. I will do a weather in 5 video since we won't be doing a live show tomorrow night because we kind of need a break here. So, but I will be doing a weather in 5 video probably sometime later tomorrow afternoon, and we'll be back Sunday night at 7:30 in the thick of all of it, and then we can move on from there. So, for those of you who are watching for the first time, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And of course, if you like the show, hit the like button because Joe likes to blow horns and ring bells every time we pass a round number of 100. Just be thankful he doesn't ring the bell every time we get a like, because then this would be a very noisy show. All right. Let's run through what's going on now. Then we'll go through our early calls that we both have, and then we can from there we'll get into the models. I have the new 18Z European, which is a revelation actually, but we'll get started, shall we?
Surely.
Okie dokie. So we will begin with the watches and warnings that are up, and we have winter storm watches up from northwestern Virginia and northeastern West. Well, I got to check for West Virginia. Hold on just a second. I think there are a few counties in West Virginia that are under a winter storm watch, and I am correct on that. Also, South Central and much of southeastern Pennsylvania and up into northeastern Pennsylvania. Well, that was quick. Uh,
Yeah.
Northwest New Jersey, also the northeastern counties of New Jersey under a winter storm watch. The lower and middle up Hudson Valley, and much of Connecticut, with the exception of the south coast and the southeast, western and central Massachusetts, and southern Vermont. And I suspect that tomorrow we'll probably see more winter storm watches going up, and eventually we'll probably see some winter storm warnings going up as well. That beautiful blue color. I have a sweatshirt that color, Joe, in North Dakota and northern Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin. That is the color for an extreme cold advisory. That is an extreme cold advisory. I suspect it's that color blue because that's the color you will turn to if you're outside with not enough clothing on. And just to the south in that lighter blue is a plain old cold advisory. It's gotten to where they have to advise us on everything.
Yeah.
All right. Winter storm warnings up for a couple of counties in northeastern New Mexico. Otherwise, you have advisories up on the east side of the Rockies, including Denver. I think Denver was going for 4 to 7 inches for tonight, and then back up through Wyoming, and then in Montana we have a mixture of winter weather advisories and a couple of extreme cold and advisories and cold weather advisories. I just love that. And then wind advisories and high wind watches up in southwest Texas. So when you look on the satellite loop, you can kind of see the mess we're in. You've got a system that's moving across southern Canada. You've got a system that is moving across the lower Mississippi Valley and heading east. And that's going to be a low that's going to move offshore tomorrow. This is going to be a key player for Sunday. Okay. It's not the Sunday low. This is a lead low that's going out into the Atlantic. And I'll explain that later. And then, of course, we're going to be looking for an upper trough that's going to be swinging down with the bitter cold air. That is the other player in all of this, because that's going to either uh, draw the developing low for Sunday northward, close to the coast, or uh, force it to kind of slide out further to the east because of what's going to be going on out to the east in the Atlantic. Radar tonight, there are there's rain and showers, maybe even a rumble or two of thunder here from the southern system moving east. Most of that moisture is going to cross through the southeastern states overnight and into tomorrow morning, and not really move on up to the northeast. And of course, you've got precip that's running across the northern lakes and back up into eastern Canada. And you can see the patchy snows in northern Colorado and in central Wyoming, and some snow aloft in parts of Montana. Otherwise, in the west and from Texas westward to California, northward to Washington state, we don't have much going on. WPC, next 7 days of precip. You're looking at now, this what you see in the northeast down to about Maryland and Delaware is pretty much for this weekend. And they got made it a little juicy here, a half to 3/4 of an inch of liquid. So, maybe they're leaning to the idea they like the wetter GFS model. I don't know. Also, you see a lot of this moisture along the Gulf Coast. That some of this is for the next weather system next week. There's a mixture in here from what you see in Tennessee, Kentucky, down into Alabama and Georgia. That's that. Most of that is that lead system that's coming through. So in total, we're looking at anywhere from a half an inch as you go north into the lower Ohio Valley to an inch and a half plus in the eastern parts of the Gulf Coast and 2.5 inches plus in northern and central Florida. In the Rockies, it's a tenth to a quarter of an inch all the way up. And in the Pacific Northwest, it's a tenth to a quarter of an inch all the way up. All right. WPC, Joe. WPC, this is the probability for at least two. Okay. It's a 24-hour probability. And they have, so I always like to use the 50% line as the line where I'm going to put my 2 inch line. Okay. So basically where the darker blue is, which if I could aim better, there we go. But basically where the darker blue is where I would have put the 2 inch line. It kind of went a little bit east of there, but uh, my experience is that 50% line ends up verifying much of the time. So there's that. And you can see it all goes all the way down south of the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. So at least from the world that WPC lives in, uh, Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, Hartford, Providence, Boston, all Hartford's not in the I-95 corridor, but all on the I-95 corridor, according to WPC, gets at least two. And then, of course, you've got the 70 to 80% chance in the light blue, and the 80 to 100%, 80 to 90% chance in the salmon color. I'm going to switch this over to the probability for at least four. And on the probability for at least four, and we get the state lines in so we can see. There you go. So just north and I mean literally just north and west of New York City, probably in once you get into Westchester County and just beyond once you cross the bridge to the other side, the GW Bridge or the Holland and Lincoln tunnels on the other side, you start to get to where you have an elevated risk of at least 50% or higher for at least for north central Maryland, northeastward into eastern and northeastern PA, northern New Jersey. Want to use I-95 north and west or the Route 1 corridor as your line. I suppose either one could work. And then you have that also higher percentages of 60 to 70% in the Hudson Valley. Joe, I think it looks like you're in the 60 to 70% camp and points north and east. And if we want to look at the probability for at least, do I do 6 or 8?
Let's try six.
All right, 6 it is. So the 6 area is actually, now that's 40% or higher. Northwest New Jersey looks like, say, west and north of 287, the Hudson Valley along and north of 280 of 84, and points northward up into Massachusetts, New Hampshire, southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire. Uh, 40 to 50, at least a 40 to 50% chance, and higher probabilities in that lighter blue there in western Mass and northwest Connecticut. If we want to take a look at the probability for at least eight, this is where the numbers come down. You're looking at that green is 20 to 30% for at least eight. It's not a low number. It's not a low number, but I kind of like to see 40 or 50 to gain some confidence that
That's
the
over the
numbers are going to be
Berkshires,
that
it looks
high.
like.
Yeah, Catskills, Berkshires, etc. Yeah, that pretty much covers it. And for the long range, this is Tuesday into Wednesday. We're looking at a 30 to 50% chance for at least 3 inches. Southeast Texas. Did he say Southeast Texas? Yeah, Southeast Texas,
Yes,
including
it's amazing.
Houston, by the way. Extending across southern Louisiana. New Orleans is like literally right on the edge of the 30, 50, 10, 30 line. And then there's a little break, and then you see 30 to 50 again in southern Georgia, southern South Carolina, eastern North Carolina. So that includes Savannah's in 10 to 30, Charleston's in 30 to 50, Myrtle Beach is in 30 to 50, Wilmington 30 to 50, Hatteras is Hatteras is in 10 to 30. That's a number you don't
That's,
see very often.
yeah,
Mhm.
that blows my mind.
And on up into northeastern North Carolina around Elizabeth City. So we've taken care of that.
Now let's point out again for the people who either were not paying attention or just tuned in. What we just showed you, that map, is not for the weekend storm. This is for the
Tuesday,
system that is
Wednesday.
coming in Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah.
Right. All right. Um, Early calls. You go first.
All righty. Let me blah, 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 blah. Did this, and I'll go to Le Zoom.
And David Fuller, by the way, has hit super chat tonight too. Thank you, David. Most appreciated. I hope you get a little bit of snow. Um, the Tuesday nights cannot come into Monmouth County. That's going out to the south. So at least from what we see. But we always like to do one storm at a time around here anyway. Um, all right, so have at it.
Okay, well, basically, for the folks who live, for example, out across, let me just enlarge this a little bit. Maybe I'll make it turn out to be a little bit better. There you go. For Long Island, I more or less split it between areas across the southern and eastern parts of Long Island. I've got an inch or two, however, up toward the north shore of Long Island and west to the New York City border, as well as New York City itself. I'm saying a general 2 to 4 inch snow accumulation. Now, keep in mind that Interstate 287 is right about here. And so, if you are going to be anywhere south of 287, you're going to find yourself with 2, 3, 4 inches. That's for Mamaroneck, for Yonkers, for Mount Vernon. But north of White Plains, across much of central and northern Westchester, all or mostly all of Rockland County, southern sections of Orange County, most of Putnam County, and I am in Putnam County. I'm suggesting 4 to maybe as much as 6 inches. The puff factor, the fluff factor, is not going to be such a big condition here because I think temperatures during the height of the storm will be mostly in the mid and upper 20s, and that pretty much will keep it to a 10 or 11 to 1 ratio. But still, 4 to 6 in one sitting, that's more than what many places have seen so far this winter season. And then, Joe, taking into account the higher terrain areas of Sullivan County, Ulster, northern Orange County, and portions of Dutchess County, as well as northwestern Connecticut, which has some pretty high elevations. 6, a half a foot to maybe as much as 8 inches. Now, again, preliminary, first call forecast for yours truly. Again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, a lot of problems here, trying to rectify who's going to get what, because we have, for example, the NAM. We're this close now to the event, and the NAM is still putting us more or less on the northern edge. It's a little bit more than last night or the night before, but still just a peripheral type of shot, maybe an inch or two. GFS going whole hog with anywhere from 4 to 8 inches. We have the Canadian model, which is showing a coast hugger event, which suggests that initially everybody starts off as snow, but then as we get into the really hefty part of the storm, Long Island, New York, all the way up to maybe southern sections of Westchester and lower sections of Connecticut could change over to sleet or even plain rain. And that certainly would cut down on your accumulations. And then lastly, we have the 12Z. I have not seen the 18Z. You have it, I don't. But the 12Z European, especially the ensembles, taking the storm more to track south and east of the 4070 benchmark. And that would suggest roughly half of what the GFS is suggesting. So if you see 4 to 8 for the GFS, the European is saying, well, maybe more like 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 inches. So you've got all of these numbers scattered all over the place. So from all of that, this is what I came up with as a consensus. And we'll see. Things could change tomorrow, and especially just before the actual event begins early on Sunday. So we'll see what happens here. But this is my first call, Joe, for snow, and I think the worst of it will be from Sunday afternoon into early Sunday night. I think pretty much it's all over with by the time we get to around midnight Sunday night, early Monday morning.
All right. And now, hold on. I'm going to switch over to mine. And there you go. So this is my early call. And I am being much more conservative, mainly because there's a lot of things I'm not sure of and probably won't be sure of until tomorrow. But here's what I'm doing. So I've got a 2 inch line from southeastern New England down to east of the South Fork of Long Island, and then across from New Jersey, from Tom's River southwest to, not quite to Dover, Delaware, I guess, and then swinging down south of Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, and then kind of curling up from there through central Pennsylvania, right through State College. I'm probably underdone on the western side, um, admittedly, for a whole host of reasons. Um, because a lot of times when we get these situations, there's a mixing of what's going on with the storm, and then if there's lake effect that gets involved and somehow manages to get into central PA, which it does sometimes, and then it goes on up to the northeast. And I drew a 4 inch line south of Boston, south of Providence, through southeastern Connecticut, cutting across central Long Island through Suffolk County, coming into Monmouth County, into southwest Jersey, south of Wilmington, right down to just northwest, right south of Baltimore, but northwest of Washington, D.C., and then swinging it around, going northward to Harrisburg, and then northeast from there, the east of Binghamton, and then northeastward from there. And I say 4 inches or more with pockets of 6 inch snowfalls possible. I'm unsure of quite a few things with this, and the reason why, and I'm going to go to let's look at the GFS here, and we could use the 18Z, which by the way I thought was actually a tick southeast of the prior run, but no matter. Here's our system coming through for tonight and tomorrow, and you can see that where it's cold enough in parts of Ohio and points north and east, some areas are going to get some snow in the mix here, and the GFS does bring a few showers during the morning and early afternoon before they go out. What we really need to pay attention to, I'm going to switch this over to the other map where you can see the isobars better. that southern system here is okay. Nope, that's not it. Hang on a second, folks. Just give me a moment. Uh, that's the one. All right. Right here. There's a lead low that comes out tomorrow from that southern system. You've got your weather front that's out to the west. That's pushing it along. That's the Arctic boundary. And of course, the beginnings of bitter cold air coming down uh, from the plains and the Great Lakes down into Texas. They're going to have a blue norther in Texas as that cold air pushes southward. I've been there for a couple of those. So this low, and we've been talking about the fact that the Atlantic flow for much of the time since mid-December has been pretty much like a straight line ruler from west to east. And we've seen weather system after weather system pass by to our south, including the Kansas to Virginia snowstorm from last week. That low went straight east, did not move northward because there was no traffic in the Atlantic. It was just in this fast west to east flow. So it goes straight east, can't lift northward and up the east coast. This low is going to be moving out, and it's a small low, but it's intensifying. And the thing is, it's creating traffic out there. So now, one of two things will happen. Either a follow-up low, which is you see that L in western North Carolina. Everybody pay attention. Here's your low that's out in the Atlantic. That follow-up low can respond to the ocean low by doing one of two things. It will either follow it along right behind it, or if this is strong enough, it'll force this low to climb northward because that'll be the path of least resistance. If there's a low out to its east that's too strong, it can't go there, so it's going to find another place to go. And this is what I think the models are really struggling with. And this is why we have this big spread between what the Canadian is doing versus what the GFS is doing. And the spread with the European has become even bigger. I have the European ready to go. But the GFS takes that low, moves it into southern Virginia near Danville. You see the snow that breaks out. And then it passes to the east. It's a little more offshore on this run, and it keeps it mostly snow, and it generates a lot of liquid precip. You can see those darker blues there on the map. In fact, on the actual map itself, Joe, from that reflects the radar echoes that I looked at earlier. I don't know if it shows up on. It doesn't really show up on this one, but on the one on Pivotal, it actually showed some areas of that purple S plus in blobs. One that forms over northern New Jersey, and then a couple of them that form in Connecticut and in western Massachusetts. Now, here's the European. Since you've been talking about the European, Joe, you're gonna like this. So here's the Europeans' view, and this is pivotal weather, and here we go. So now we're into tonight and tomorrow morning. You got that southern low, that first low goes out, and it's
And you're going to show this is the operational now, correct?
correct.
Correct. Okay.
Look at this first surface low, okay? And then here's the beginnings of the Sunday low in southern Alabama, okay?
Right.
That first low, remember, it's either going to produce a traffic jam to force it to move northward, or it's going to leave enough of an opening so that second low will just follow it. Well, that's what the European is doing. Instead of where the GFS has that low in on the North Carolina Virginia state line near Danville, the European has the low near Charleston. And look what it does with it. It takes it out east northeast so that by tomorrow evening, it's at 37, roughly 37.7 and 69 and a half. Look how far out that is. So
That's it. That's Sunday evening, right?
on Sunday evening. Now it
Right.
generates snow. It generates snow from southern New Hampshire down into Maryland and Delaware, which is just exiting northeastern Virginia. But that snow is really more from the negatively tilting upper trough to the west, and not with the coastal low. The coastal low goes way out. So
right,
this is why the European is not generating anywhere close to the kind of numbers that the GFS is, because it's saying that that low is going to take a track well to the south and east. And remember last night when we were talking about the NAM that had the, and I remember I was
right.
telling you how the NAM had the low at 35 and like 65, because the NAM was suggesting that exactly this, that the NAM was suggesting that there won't be enough of a traffic jam out in the Atlantic to force that low northward. So I'm going to switch to, I'm going to go tight here. I'm going to go to the local map of the European, and I'm going to
I'd
put
also
up,
be interested, I don't mean to interrupt, I'd also
no,
be interested in seeing, if you have access to the 18Z European Ensemble.
I do. So here's where I think, by the way, we're inside 48. I think if you're 70, inside 72 hours, snowfall maps become somewhat useful, okay? Because at least they give you a picture of what the model's depicting, all right? As opposed to when people put out snowfall maps from 300 for 300 hours into the future, which are absolutely totally useless, just absolutely totally useless as a forecast tool. But
I agree.
now that we know where we think the snow is going to fall, but you can see what the Europeans got here, Joe. It's basically a 2.5 to 3.5 inch snowfall from Maryland northeastward up to Boston. And in fact, if you go far enough north and west, the amounts drop way down. Poughkeepsie 1.9, Middletown 1.6, Allentown 2.1, Albany 1.1. And again, the Europeans got the low going way out to the east. It's I find it uncanny that it's doing that, if only because of the fact that usually it's the European that wants to take things more northwest, and the other models want to be more suppressed in southeast. And this is one of those rare times when it's reversed. Now let's go to the and shambles, shall we? Surely.
Surely,
Uh,
yes.
so I have the 18Z and shambles, and since I've got the snow map up, we can look at that. So this is the probability of a 24-hour snowfall. I mean, from Philadelphia, actually, it's close enough. I mean, it's basically 70% or higher from Washington and Baltimore all the way up into Boston. This is for the 24-hour period ending 7 a.m. Monday. And when we look at the snowfall on the ensembles, since I've got it up who else shows you this stuff? You get it on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So the ensembles are basically showing an inch and a half, an inch and 3/4 to maybe 2.5 inches in that area from Washington and Baltimore up into southeastern New England. And if we look at what it does on the map, all right, so let me get to the national map here, and we'll now just give me a moment because I always have trouble finding it. I got to find the plots. Here we go. It was easy. So now here are the ensemble plots of the European on the 18Z run. And in fact, so this is the first low that's out here. Okay, so that's Saturday evening. That goes out. And here's the second low. Um, so the ensemble, Joe, and I can go tight on this. Let me go tight so everybody can see it better. Excuse me. So here's a tight view of the ensemble plots. So we'll watch the mid-Atlantic coast. All right, so there you go. There's the first one, and here comes. You see how the second one just kind of follows right behind it,
Right, right.
almost like it's on a railroad track. But there's the ensemble. The mean position is at about 37.2 and 71.8, so it's about 2 degrees to the left of the operational. But still, all the members out here, Joe, they're all way offshore. You've got nothing close to the coast, nothing.
Yeah.
So the European is saying no traffic jam. It's going to go out more east and offshore. You have to respect the model. I mean, you got to respect that possibility that this could wind up being where the surface low gets forced further southeast, and you get snow, but you get it from the negatively tilted upper trough that comes around, and you get 2 or 3 inches. Maybe somebody gets 4, but that would be the maximum.
Now, you see, I learned a lesson almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago, actually, with the big snowstorm of 2016. That storm, if you remember, the global models for New York City were going basically 3 to 6, 4 to 8 inches. The NAM stood out from the very moment that that storm was within the range of the NAM. The NAM was saying New York was going to get 20, 25, even close to 30 inches of snow. I saw that and I said, well, we all know where we could put the NAM. I could probably line my neighbor's bird cage with it, or I could probably throw it in the circular file. That certainly is not going to happen. The global models are the way to go. Interestingly, though, each passing run, the NAM kept saying the same thing for whatever reason. 20 inches, 22 inches, and the other models, the global models, saying like 4, 6, 8. And then, literally, the night before, the last run before the event, all of a sudden, the global model said, in their own mathematical way, hey, you know what? That NAM model is onto something. We're going to go, and all of a sudden, I remember talking with Rich Von Olin. Rich Von Olin was the guy who was in charge of Channel 61, Metro Traffic and Weather, when Cablevision was worth watching. Now it's Optimum or Altice or whatever. But I'm on the phone with him at 1 o'clock in the morning saying, Rich, what the hell are we going to do? Because all of a sudden, the global models were saying, instead of 4 to 8, they were saying like 8 to 16, like 10 to 18 inches. They were following along what the NAM was saying. The NAM was going over and over and over, and it was still saying, the NAM was still saying like over 20 inches. What happened? New York City ended up with 27 and a half inches of snow. I learned that night. I learned a lesson that night. First of all, the NAM is not the. I do not want to offend anybody, but I will say it here. It is not a schizophrenic model. The NAM can do good things and good stuff, or at the very least, it will clue you in on options for impending storms. The NAM, since we have gotten within range of this system for Sunday, has been saying for the most part that this system is going to stay out to sea, and we're going to get we're going to get some snow, but we're going to stay on the peripheral northern edge. The global models, for the most part, have been saying no, it's going to go straight on in. We've got the coast hugger scenario with the Canadian. The European has been now leaning more and more toward the NAM. But I've seen technical discussions, Joe, from National Weather Service offices over the last 24 hours saying we've discarded the NAM. No, do not discard the NAM. Not that the NAM will be right ultimately, but after that lesson from 9 years ago, when they all end up on the same page, when they all end up saying, with they being the various computer models, when they all are saying basically the same thing, that's when you get confident. That's when I get confident about putting out a forecast.
Right.
As I said at the top of the show, and you said it too, a very difficult forecast because we've got them still within the 3-day time frame when it should be a lot easier now for the models to come together, and they're not.
No.
And I don't think you can discard what the NAM has been saying. The NAM has been saying it's been way out, and I know the snow levels are saying
The NAM European. The NAM
the snow
European,
levels are
yes.
saying, the snow levels are saying, oh, we're not going to. The NAM is wrong, flat out. It's an outlier. We're not going to listen to that. You can't do that when you're this close to the system and you got one system doing this and the other system going the other way and going that. You got to be very careful. And with some trepidation, I said last night, half jokingly, when people were saying, is Rayo going to put out a snow map? I was saying, I said, well, maybe. He said, well, why maybe? We're 2 days away. When are you going to put it on the map? And this is the reason. I mean, I put a map out to appease all of you, but I'm really not too thrilled with it. And I'm wondering what I'm going to have. If I put something out tomorrow, I'm wondering if it's going to be the same map or maybe something different. I don't know. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
You neglected to say that I had to talk you into the NAM on that particular basis. You left that part out, but no matter. But that, to be fair, that was a time when the NAM was hitting home run after home run after home run. But something happened to it, and I think it had to
Funny,
do with do with the fact that they've been talking about getting rid of it, that they just haven't done any kind of upgrading with it. So it's just not
Well,
as
the funny thing is that after it hit that huge grand slam home run in 2016, then when we had storms like, let's say, 5, 6, 7 days away, you know how many people came, pinged me on Messenger or whatever. Like, well, what does the
yeah.
NAM say?
What's
The
the
NAM
NAM
doesn't go
say?
out 7 days.
Right. Exactly.
And
Well,
all of a
this
sudden,
is
the NAM suddenly got the badge of honor, like the European got after Sandy in 2012, where the European 6 days in advance curved the storm into the central New Jersey, and everybody remembered that. And all of a sudden, the European became the king. After 2016, all of a sudden, everybody said, "What's the NAM saying?"
right.
We'll see what the NAM is
Well,
saying.
I've had the GFS ensembles up while you were talking, and you can see where it takes the low. It take a cluster of it. It's a little south and east of the operational position, and a lot of the members are also. Most of the members are. None of the members are to the west. None of the members are coast hugging. So there's that. Um, and if we want to look at the snow on the ensembles, at the end of the day, you got to make a forecast, which is what we did. Okay, and I've at least I've put out there the caveats that I think are really important because this still could wind up being, it could the European you cannot rule what the European slash NAM and to a lesser extent what the icon was showing. The icon seems to want to jump around a bit. Uh, I've got the ensemble snows and 4 inches that goes down on the ensembles. So you got to massage it. I always have problems using ensembles because they just give you an average of all the members. So you're going to have some members that are going to put 20 inches, and you're going to have some members that are going to put zero. So I'd rather argue with one model, just doing one set of numbers and just kind of going from there. But you see where it does have an area of 6 inches plus, northern New Jersey, mostly inland, but it still gives several inches down, for the coastal communities, a little less, maybe an inch or two for coastal southern New Jersey and southern Delaware. New York City gets about 4 or 5. And you see also the snow going back to western PA and down into West Virginia. The other thing that I was looking at that was bothering me through all of this is the SREF, which is what we get le plumes from.
The plumes.
Le plumes. Now, the SREF, Joe, if you look at how it lays out the snow, first of all, if it winds up being a coast hugger, okay, if we're going to get a deeper storm that's a coast hugger, numbers inland are going to go up. You're going to have probably at least a 4 to 8 inch band of snow, if not more, in inland areas, and mostly heavy rain along the coast until it ends, and then the temperatures will just plummet and the water will freeze on all surfaces. But the thing about the SREF that I find bothersome is that it's showing pretty light amounts even up to the north. I mean, it could only scrape out maybe a couple of inches. So you
Right.
look at this and I'm thinking, okay, it must have a more of a tucked in crack of some sort, but it must be very weak because it's not really producing very much. In fact, let me see if I can pull up the QPF, the precip, total QPF. So we'll use the total because tomorrow's QPF is not going to amount to much. We could subtract the 10. I mean, it's giving like yeah, and it's really strange, Joe. It's got 6 and 7 tenths of liquid in New England, yet it's somehow and in interior New England, yet it can only generate a couple of inches of snow. So I'm not exactly sure what it's doing with respect to its snowfall. I'm going to try to see if I can find
I,
this.
let me tell you, I'm looking at the graph, the numbers of the ones that we are, more accustomed to looking at. You have the ability of seeing them translate into a chart, but I will tell you that for White Plains, for this impending event coming up, they only give 1.58 inches of snow for White
Right.
Plains. This is the plumes now.
Right, which is
Um,
off the SREF.
right.
Right.
And,
I have the maps that I have with the mean up, and I've got the surface of the SRF, which you see it's got a 1,003 low just east of the Delaware coast, and it just kind of goes northeast to just south of Montauk to a 98. I don't know why it's not generating higher snow amounts than it is. It's more of a coast hugger, but at least it should have some big snow amounts inland, and it doesn't seem to have it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead. You go. You go.
no, no, no. I agree. It doesn't make any sense. You would look if you didn't have the ability of seeing the generated numbers. You would say, well, this obviously is going to produce, 2 to 4, 4 to 7 inches of snow, something like that. And the numbers, the actual numbers that we see here is nothing to match up with that. So, and I'm still wondering about this. There's one model which I've not been able to see or find on social media. I guess you have to pay for it. It's the graph model, the GARAF. Have you ever seen
Um, I haven't seen. Let me see if it's on my menu here. I have the national blend of models, the NWS blend of models,
that? Right.
is, but I don't seem to have what's called the graph model. Whose model is it?
All right. Well, I don't know. I don't know where this model comes from, but on WCBS2, Lonnie Quinn likes to show this graph model. Tonight it was beautiful. It was wonderful that Lonnie showed in one segment. He showed two maps showing, well, if the storm goes this way, we're going to get that, and if it goes this way, we're going to get this. And then half an hour later, he shows the GFS numbers, and then he shows the graph numbers. And the thing that blew my mind is if you follow along the graph model, the GAAF model for Newburgh, they had something like 3.5 inches, and then he shows the GFS, and the GFS has like 9.6. And I'm saying to myself, what is he doing? And I'm talking to TV. I said, Lonnie, you're confusing the issue here. I mean, my goodness, the average person. If I lived in Newburgh now, what am I to expect? Instead of again taking all the numbers, taking all the models, and kind of melding it into a consensus forecast, which I think is the way to go. He's showing this model, that model, this model, this 3 inches here, 9 inches, and like, and again, I don't know what the graph model is. I've never been able to find it on social media or on the internet.
Okay,
I
so I can
guess
tell you why. Hold on. Proprietary to the weather company, Graph is a physics-based, high-precision, rapidly updating global weather modeling system that can predict something as small as a thunderstorm anywhere on the planet. I'm reading this off of Google. Okay,
really.
so apparently it's a Weather Channel product. Okay,
Oh,
and it was created by IBM when IBM had, remember Roaring Thunder?
oh yeah.
Yeah, so that was brief. So it's probably just the next generation of Roaring Thunder. Now, I did put up the national
Well, I
blend of
guess then,
models.
I guess then, Joe. I hate to interrupt you again, but I guess if the graph model is going for so little in Newburgh, which is like in my backyard, I shouldn't expect very much, should I? If the graph model is such a wonderful model.
Right. Well, I mean, if you use the the national blend of models, it only gives Middletown 3.4, Poughkeepsie 3.6, 2 inches in New York City, 2 inches in Islip, 2 inches in Bridgeport, Hartford 2.7, Albany 3.5. I mean, again, this looks to me. I mean, the NBW, the national blend of models. Well, of course, it's all the models and just an average of all of them. But if you're going to use averages, you're going to get if you're using averages, you're going to get average results. And I don't know that as a forecaster, you want to be an average forecaster or you want to be an exceptional forecaster.
Well,
So, that's why I kind of like to, I try to, I'm not, that's why I'm not crazy about, consensus models. Like, not that I don't look at the ensembles, but to forecast off of them to me is, um, you're going to get, I don't want to get average results. I want to hit home runs for every forecast that I make. And when I
Well,
don't,
so
I
do
want to
I.
know why, you
So
know?
so do I. And I'm maybe, I don't know, maybe it won't happen in your lifetime, in my lifetime, probably won't. But maybe sometime down the road, maybe 50 years from now or whatever like that, the people will be the meteorologists will be turning around and looking at us and saying, "Remember those poor saps? They had to look at like the GFS, the European, and this model and that model. Maybe in 50 years there'll be the universal model, the one that we all look at and all rely on, and it's the only model, and doesn't confuse the issue here by showing you one set of numbers for one storm and this set of numbers for another. It ain't happening right, and that's why we have the confusion tonight as to exactly what to call for Sunday. Because again, we've got models going one way with 2 and 3 inches, and other models like the GFS going whole hog with 8 and 9 inches, and you've got the Canadians saying, wait a minute, it's going to change the rain because it's going to hug enough already.
Oh, I know. I know. Well, the Canadian would have, heavy, would have rain all the way up to Route 84. I mean, you'd really have to go up north and west to pick up
Yep.
something, from there.
Ah,
I, I'm
for the
very,
days,
I'm
Joe.
very intrigued. What's that?
I said, for the days of the Bustatropic.
Yes, I'm, I'm very intrigued by how this is going to play because I think if actually the sadist in me would love to see because it seems to me when I was looking on social media tonight and in other places that and even the weather service to a certain extent they seem to have gone like they're going like GFS crazy with their forecasts and I'm just there's a part of me that really would like to see the European be more correct. Now there's one other possibility that we didn't address and that is the European could be too, it's going out to the east. And you've got the other models that are much closer to the coast. We could split the difference here and it could take that track between the two, maybe just enough traffic to pull it northward, but not too far northward where it responds to the negatively tilting trough to the west that gets pulled to the coast. And you wind up with a low that goes to 40 and 70. And you wind up getting a band of 4 to 8 inches for everybody. I mean, that's not impossible.
No, it's not. And in fact, I know some forecasters who just do a forecast for the mid and long range, and they use the GFS and the European, and they split the difference. And you're absolutely right. If you split the difference between the massive numbers of the GFS and the not so massive European, you'll still end up with a very significant snowfall of maybe not 8 or 9 inches, but certainly enough to plow or to shovel,
Right.
and that's certainly a possibility. On the other hand, though, we have to watch and see now if the GFS starts turning more, more to the south and east, and leaning more toward the European as opposed to the European pushing everything back to the north and west and leaning toward the GFS.
Yeah, it's it's 8:30. The new NAM is going to start in about 15 minutes, but it won't be out far enough for us because we're not going to stay on for another hour. Um, So we got another model cycle that's about to start. I really just I kind of, like I said, that sadist part of me wants the European to be right that maybe we get just a couple of inches and, the ones that were screaming 6, 7, 8, 10, okay, um, go out and burning in flames. But on the other hand, the snow lover in me would like to see everybody get a nice 4 to 8 inch snowfall. And then, of course, we'll have to deal with the people that if we do wind up with whatever we wind up with, they're going if the forecast verifies, they're still going to call it a bust because somehow they think they were supposed to get 24 inches out of this, and that's it. You know what? We should do a little bit of the next one down in the deep south because this one I think is kind of important for folks that live in the deep south because we just had a pretty wild snow and ice event here last week. And then, of course, we also had the Kansas to Virginia storm that was uh, produced some record snowfalls in some places in Arkansas and in western Tennessee. So we do have, with this big high, I'm going to switch over here to this particular map. So, of course, here's our Sunday storm that goes out, and now you've got the big high coming down. Easterly winds across the Gulf of Mexico coming into Texas, and a little ripple in the upper atmosphere. You start to get a low that develops in the western Gulf of Mexico, and you can see this. It breaks out ice and snow. Houston, San Antonio's kind of on the edge, up to about Dallas, and then it slides eastward. Now the heavier snow is going to be more to the south, and it takes a low across the Gulf, spreads snows through central and south Georgia. The lighter blue snow, when you see it on this map, for those of you who use tropical tidbits, the lighter blue snow, much of the time in developing storms, is usually snow on the radar that doesn't reach the ground. And
Right.
if you switch over to the radar version of it, you can often see, you look at these echoes, and then you go back and you look at where the measurable is, which is what this is. Uh, if it shows radar echoes outside of where it shows measurable, it's showing you Virga. So uh, you want to look at maybe the darker blue snows. Now, as you get further north into the colder air, like when you see the lake effect stuff, the lighter blue snows are actually more than likely reaching the ground, and actually, in some instances, it could be snowing rather hard, depending on what the temperature is. But anyway, I would suspect that we're probably going to see a slew of winter storm watches go up over the weekend. Well, maybe not tomorrow so much, but I think maybe on Sunday they'll start putting them up for uh, the southern areas of the Deep South, because this is going to be really right along the Gulf Coast with snow and ice in New Orleans, snow and ice in Houston, Gulfport, Biloxi, southern Alabama, Montgomery South, Atlanta, probably Macon South, where we could see some accumulating snows, and you could see ice shift over into South and North Carolina with some snow inland. And actually, Joe, the GFS has been wanting to push the leading edge of snow, all into the southern counties of New Jersey for a brief time, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning before the whole thing slides out to the east. So it's possible that we could, see it get close, but I'm suspecting the way the upper air is, which is kind of on the flattish side from west to east, that this the Gulf system is probably going to slide out eastward. Too early to talk about specifics with regards to any kind of amounts. I think we'll probably take that challenge up on Sunday. And I think all the responsible forecasters that you may watch on TV in the southern states are pretty much saying the same thing, that you can't really say anything specific because it's still about 4 or 5 days away. But check us out later in the weekend. I think that is a wise thing to do. So uh, here we
And
are.
you may remember, I made a comment about a local forecaster here on TV a couple of days ago who they asked about, well, any big storms in our future, and I guess a couple of days ago he didn't think very much of the storm on Sunday, and he was talking about this system that was coming in a week from Thursday. In other words, next Thursday. Next Thursday would be the 23rd. And now it doesn't even look like there is going to be any kind of a system on the 23rd. And the system that he was totally overlooking or not even making a big fuss about is now going to be the one that may provide some plowable snow. Maybe. We're still not sure about that. But again, this is just another example of how when you try to forecast, especially in the wintertime, potential storms, 5, 6, 7 days or more out, this is what your problem is, because the problem being that it's almost all but impossible. You just have to keep track, keep a look. I mean, here we are. We're 48 hours, less than 48 hours away from a snow event, and we're still trying to juggle exactly what the numbers are going to be. That's the way it is sometimes in weather, and It's hard enough sometimes to get it, within 2 days. I mean, to try to go 7, 8, 9 days out, that's another story altogether.
I have the H triple R. Let's take a look at this because the H triple R earlier today had a low pinned well inland. So I have it out to 9 o'clock Sunday morning. So we could take a look at that. And if you like the fact that I'm giving you the latest H triple R, you can hit the like button so we can get to 200. Um,
Be
so
nice.
there's that. Um, so here's the H triple R. I'm just going to roll it back a bit. Now again, I only have it out. I've got it out what 38 hours because on the at 06Z, 18, 12, 18Z, the H triple R, which normally is only run out to 18 hours, is run out to 48. So here's our system for tomorrow. Ocean low goes out. It's not particularly well developed, and actually gets out of the spacing of the H triple R. And there's your Sunday low in western South Carolina, and then it's in southwestern Virginia. This is at 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and it's already got snow into northern New Jersey to about New York City at 9 in the morning. So it's faster, and the low is pinned back in Southwest Virginia. Now, where it goes from here, I don't know. Let me get a close-up view. Let's go close up, and we'll take a look here. Thank you. Um, yes. So, it's when I saw the old one, you already see that the isobars look like they're pointing to just east of Atlantic City. So, you know what, Joe? This is one of those instances in the old days that you would take out your you would take out your blank map at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday and plot as fast as you can to
Right.
see where the biggest pressure falls are, because that'll tell you where the low is going. And I'm just, kind of just eyeballing this. I mean, just looking at where the isobars are kind of coming to a point. I mean, it looks like to me that the H triple R is going to want to track it. Oh, come on. I always hit the wrong button.
Technology,
There you
Joe.
go. Yes, I know. But it looks like it would take a track like this. And that's not a terrible track. I mean, there's going to be a rain snow line somewhere. But it's not, it's not going up like this, running up right near the New Jersey coast to south of Long Island. So again, it's just I'm just doing this. I'm just trying to get a feel for off this H triple R, and it's not out far enough at this point. I just got a couple of more frames. So now we got to
And you
oh
made me
look, it's
think.
well here it is now. So this is at 11 o'clock, Joe. The low is in the southern part of Chesapeake Bay, and it looks like the weakness in the isobars is almost straight to the east. There's a line of sleet. That purple, I'm guessing, is sleet. Let me look at the sounding. Uh, it's like borderline. Surface temperature of 34. Uh, and, well, let's just assume that whatever that is, snow and sleet, northern Delaware, Trenton, New York City, western Long Island, and, the blue obviously is snow, into western Connecticut, the northern half of New Jersey, and just about all of eastern Pennsylvania. It's mostly done in Maryland and back in Virginia. You've got some rain in Chesapeake Bay, but it looks like the old H triple R was kind of telling you that it was going to go up, uh, could be an not just a coast hugger, but it had a low uh, between Wilmington and Harrisburg, practically. So on the old run. So now, which would be for 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So here we are at 11 o'clock in the morning in the south of Chesapeake Bay. I mean, it looks to me like it wants to go more offshore and not go north and just inland. So anyway, it's just a guess on my part. We got our 200 likes, and that's good too.
you reminded me, of plotting sectionals and the excitement with approaching winter storms of seeing on Circuit A the various observations and a whole bunch of them saying pressure falling rapidly, and you say, here we go, this is it. Somehow here we are now, all these years later, and we've kind of lost the excitement,
I know.
uh, lots of excitement of
It,
stuff like
Carol to carry. The thing I got to be careful. Just remember when, yeah, my eyes don't see very well when it comes to color, but there and of course on some of these maps, purple, the purple for sleet and the purple for heavy snow is like fairly close. That does look like a narrow band of sleet. It's probably a mix of snow and sleet. Um, and I don't know that it would make a huge difference in terms of snow amounts overall because I don't think it probably would last very long anyway. But no matter, we'll see what happens on Sunday. So you probably have Briller Jeopardy. Let's hold off until either Sunday or
October.
Monday, or
Yeah, it
do
was
I
a
have it?
Sunday,
I
Monday,
think
or
I have it.
no, I have it. I had he
You
sent
have
me
it?
he sent me something this morning.
Okay. Yeah, let's hold off until either Sunday or Monday.
All right.
Um, yeah, let's do that. Okay. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of spacing out a little bit. David Fuller hit super chat twice tonight. Frank Gilroy, Jason Kaplan, and also Brandon Doherty, Robert Lomnicki, and Raymond O'Hara. All super chat hitters tonight. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate it greatly. And so again, um, tomorrow we're not gonna have a show tomorrow night. I know Ruben Fairchild, we need to do a Saturday show. I don't want to do a Saturday show, and that's all there is to it. Okay, I got things to do. All right, but I will do a weather in 5 video, which will probably be more than 5 minutes. And I'll probably do it late in the afternoon tomorrow after I've digested all the day run guidance. So at least you'll have that, and I'll send out I'll post something in the community page too, so you may get a notification from YouTube, or you may not. But maybe around 5 or 6 o'clock tomorrow night, look for it. And then Joe and I will be back Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time. Okie dokie.
I'll be here.
Good.
Or as Harvey said, I'll be there. Just make
For
sure
sure.
you're there.
You're there. All right, everybody. Have a great night and a safe weekend. We'll see you Sunday. Bye.